Hi there, I'm Bonnie McCaffery, and thank you so much for coming back. I'm so excited because I'm here in Denise Tallon Havlan's home in her studio, and she does the most amazing quilted portraits. And you were telling me this is one of the first original pieces that you did?
The piece behind us is called Forbidden Fruit.
Can you give us a peek at how you go about designing your work and
Sure.
where the ideas come from?
Hard to say where the ideas come from. A lot of my pieces, most of my pieces are people and animals. I love people and animals. But I usually start with a very small sketch.
Right.
It's very little.
So like this little sketch here.
Yeah. That was an idea. It just came to me, and so I do little doodles and sketches and colored it in just with some ideas of color that I might want to use in the piece. This is what I used for this particular piece. That's
so I'm curious, do you work from photographs at all, or are you just working out of your brain?
I'm working out of my brain.
Wow, you must have a great catalog in there.
Yes, I got a huge catalog in there.
You do?
Yes, I do. Ever since I was small, imagery has always been my thing.
So let's get back to this piece here. You have a drawing here, and so what do you do next after you have this drawing?
After I have this drawing, then I decide what type of quilt it's going to be. This particular work I did on unprimed canvas, of which I have a lot of. Here's my friend. I love tissue paper. I will lay this over this piece. I will draw a grid.
Right.
And that way, when I redraw the piece onto a larger sheet, I will just transfer it off the grid.
Right.
And the piece you're looking at right now is a wholly painted piece. Mm-hmm. Most of this is painted with the Cedar paints. Then I do all my applique work on it.
Wow.
Then I start the embroidery. So if you look at the buffalo, a lot of the quilting, it's not quilting. A lot of the embroidery you see is done before I bat it and back it.
Oh, this is great. Well, you're going to show us how you paint some of your faces. So let's go over to that area and we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are. We're over here at Denise's workbench, and you've got a beautiful face in the making here. Mm-hmm. So what happens next? I see you have a tracing of a face.
Then what I do is I get my light box out, and I put my tracing paper down on it, and I place my fabric over it.
Right.
And then I lightly sketch, and you can see it's very lightly done.
With a pencil. Right onto the fabric.
Onto the broadcloth. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the painting process. First of all, what kind of paints do you use?
I use the Cedar the PBO Cedar colors, and they're made for fabric.
They are?
I use the transparent.
Do you mix them with water?
Yes, I do. I get my first mixture is usually pretty loose and pretty watery, as you can see.
Right.
But what I don't like is bleeding. I don't want it to bleed. I don't care if it bleeds outside the image, because I'll cut and applique this down. But I don't want it bleeding into the eyes or anything. So what I do is I got my little trusty jar here, which is mixed.
What is that?
It's called Print Mix. Yeah, it's Print Mix, and it's kind of powdery when you get it. And you mix it with water till it gets to the consistency you need. And it's for thickening inks for printers that do printing. And
what do you do with it?
I mix it with my paints. I take it out, and depending on the thickness that I need, just to keep it from not bleeding, I mix it in with my watery color paints. And then I can do areas, as you can see on some of these areas, there's no bleeding. Yeah, so it controls the paint for me. I can get it really thin and light, and it doesn't change the color of the paint. Unless you put a whole lot in there, it'll get lighter and lighter, but it'll also get gooier. Right. So you only need a little bit of that. So that's another little secret that I have. Okay,
so we got our paint mixed with water and print mix.
Yes.
And so the process that you do, you're swirling it around.
You want to make sure your paint is mixed very well, because a lot of times I'll get that paint down on the fabric and I'll see a little dot where paint wasn't mixed, and that dot is not going to come out of there. So if you want a nice clean piece, an image like a face where you don't want a bunch of freckles, you want to make sure it's completely mixed. So what I'm going to do now, I've mixed up my paint. I've got a little bit of a broader brush because this is going to be the lightest color, and I'm going to start applying the paint to the image. And you can slide paints down a canvas from top to bottom with no problem. Fiber paint is a little tighter. The fabric, of course, grabs onto that pigment and sucks it down into the fibers. So You can kind of soften and feather edges. And also, you kind of remember, and I have to keep reminding myself, that this will dry much lighter than it looks on there now. And then I'll hit it with my iron and dry it so I make sure that it's the right color, and then I'll keep layering it down there, and I'll darken this as I go.
More pigment.
Right. So when I want to come in and get a darker area, I will add more pigment to the watered down until I get that face exactly where I want it. Right. So once I start painting, I go soup to nuts until that facial image is done.
I think it's really interesting that you're ironing as you go. Do you worry about the paint on the iron surface?
No. Well, this is my painting iron.
That's your painting iron. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that
makes sense. This is my painting iron. This is my painting pad. These are things I use. I don't iron my husband's clothes with these.
Probably not a good idea. Okay, so you have some parts that after you're done painting, these get added on, and then we can see what she's going to look like when she has her hair, and wow, she's beautiful.
Yeah, it like transforms. It's so much fun. I just love it.
Yeah, it always amazes me, and students, they'll always be saying as we're painting along, oh, it doesn't look good, and mine's no good, but they don't look right until they have eyes and eyebrows, and they really need hair. That's right.
And when you start to put those other colors and images around it, then you realize, oh, that's what I wanted.
Okay, now you've painted your face and you've got all your parts painted. How do you put your quilts together?
Well, I think I probably do it in the traditional manner, piece by piece. But what I do is construct the quilt in such a way that when I'm working on the sewing machine, I'm working on a small portion at a time. So like this quilt behind me, if you look at it, the rooster can come completely off here because he's being made as an individual piece. Most of the pieces will be completely finished in terms of any kind of embroidery work or painting, and then applied back to the background.
How do you apply it?
Well, that depends on the image itself. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing faces or doing the arms, I will actually hand turn and applique a piece to give it a nice, clean, round, smooth.
By hand?
By hand, yeah. I still do hand sewing.
It's not a dirty word.
No, I use all the techniques available to me. Now the rooster, because he's so fluffy and furry, not furry, but feathery, I will zigzag him back onto the quilt because he needs a rough edge anyways. But if you look at all the stones here, all the stones are all hand painted and hand appliqued onto this background. All of this is hand appliqued. This is all hand appliqued. The window. Yes. I do, hand applique.
She's a crazy woman.
Well, when I need to slow down, that's when I hand applique, and I almost look forward to that part of the quilt because I know I can sit down and relax, maybe watch TV or a movie, and I will hand applique those parts. I love hand applique. I love doing that hidden stitch, so you will see it a lot in my quilts.
Tell me about some of your Indian quilts.
Desert Maidens in Full Bloom.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. That piece, it was a finalist in the $100,000 quilt challenge. And
congratulations, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I was very excited, and they sent some nice prizes to the house.
Yeah.
A new iron.
Okay.
So I have a new iron that I use.
For your husband's shirts.
Yeah, that's the one I use. Okay, this one here.
Hopi Pueblo.
Yeah, Hopi Pueblo. And she, again, my favorite subject, the Hopi Indian, wearing the traditional wrap that they wear.
Okay, Denise, you were saying this is your autobiographical piece. Tell me about that.
Well, this piece here is, I will never sell this piece because it's the story of how I even got into quilting and why I got into it. If you look at the quilt, the center of the quilt is completely drawn with pencil, Prismacolor pencil and regular pencil. And the outer border of the quilt is comprised of squares that make up what we call Trip Around the World and maybe Sunshine and Shadow, which is an Amish quilt. And the figures in the center are an Amish boy and girl. When I started quilting, I went into a quilt shop, not knowing what a quilt shop was, to buy what I thought were works of art, little works of art. And they told me those are not works of art, those are quilts, which to me are works of art. And those are Amish quilts, and you can't buy them. There are class samples. You can make them in our workshop. And I just kind of chuckled because I didn't know how to sew at that point. We'll teach you to sew. Well, needless to say, I started taking the workshops. I learned how to sew. I made every one of those small little Amish quilts that I wanted to buy that day. So this was made in honor of that. It's called Humble Beginnings because that is where I started.
You know, I have looked through your portfolio here, and it's incredible. The body of work that you have here is amazing. Your art is just gorgeous. And this is probably one that you're really well known for.
Yep. Everybody knows me for the Mardi Gras quilt.
The Mardi Gras quilt.
But it's not the Mardi Gras quilt. It's Muses for a Millennium. But I guess it has that look of the Mardi Gras.
Right.
These are my muses. Mm-hmm. You can see arts and crafts, the Native American here. This is theater. This one here is music and dance. This is fine arts. And this is literature and poetry.
Your home is absolutely gorgeous, and you have a couple of pieces hanging up here. This one back here.
Yes, it's called Vanishing Warblers. So it has a little bit of an environmental theme because everything in the quilt is vanishing. You have the geisha, which you don't see too much. In fact, a lot of young Japanese have never seen a geisha in full regalia. Oh. You have the Japanese crane, red-headed crane that you see back there. The macaque monkey is in there, and then on her finger is a little warbler. And as we all know, or a lot of us that keep up with the environmental problems, a lot of the warblers now are struggling.
And upstairs is one of your newest pieces. Just beautiful. Yeah. What's the name of that piece?
That's Unbridled Passion, and that fits into what I call my circus series. I love the circus. You know, I think all of my subject matter is anything that's costuming, human form and costume or dress that I can just go crazy with.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I enjoyed it. This was so much fun.
It was fun. Yeah. And wow, to get to see your quilts in person, amazing. And thank you all for coming by. I hope you'll come back next month and see what I have for you then. Thanks for being with me.